It had been 2 months since we started working on the new AI. I would start working at 9 and keep on it till my brain gave up. Then I'd go to the gym and train. I was getting kind of acceptable at it. Fighting. The project, on the other hand, was progressing really slowly, especially since most of the time it was just me working on it. Dr. Banner had his own things to worry about, and Mr. Stark was too busy trying to destroy all of Hydra's bases with the rest of the Avengers. That damn organization had overstayed its welcome. It had been created during World War II by a Nazi called Red Skull. Was that his real name? No. I didn't think anyone's parents would be such dickheads. Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, had already fought them and defeated them once. Or at least that's what the world thought. A couple of years ago, it became evident that Rogers' efforts had been in vain, as the organization resurfaced, apparently hidden in plain sight. Some members were common people, some were influential people, most were inside S.H.I.E.L.D. It was a mess. And S.H.I.E.L.D., the organization that was supposed to deal with those kinds of problems, was dismantled. The bottom line was, Rogers should have tried harder. Now it was up to the Avengers to finish Hydra off, which meant I was alone a lot. Mr. Stark and Dr. Banner would meet with me at least once a week and discuss for 2 hours what I had been doing and what I could do next. Most of the time, the faces they made when they left were grim. It wasn't because of my code, but because something that they knew was going to happen. Was happening. According to Jarvis's calculations, this AI would be ready in 20 to 40 years. It was a very discouraging thing to hear, but I kept working on it nonetheless. I often thought if I worked for 1 hour more, those 20 years would come faster. But they were always too far away. We needed something to make this project possible, and Mr. Stark and Dr. Banner were starting to be less enthusiastic about it the longer we worked on it because we couldn't figure out what that was. We just needed a break. Something would come around that would help us finish this. I just needed to have patience. I had never had much of that. "Kira," someone called me. I stopped looking at the code to find Maria Hill waiting for me at the door. "We found him." That was enough to make me jump from my seat, grab my jacket, and follow her out. Maria Hill used to be an important part of S.H.I.E.L.D., and when she became unexpectedly unemployed, Mr. Stark hired her. She now gathered most of the intelligence the Avengers needed. That's why I had asked her for a tiny favor. We got in her car and she drove me to a huge building. It was, or used to be, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s. Now it was a government-run prison. I was alert. All the security made me nervous. "You have 5 minutes," Miss Hill told me, handing me a black folder. I looked at its content and I checked I had everything I needed. She had told me how to do this, and somehow I was ready. If I wasn't successful, someone else would try. But I was the only one that knew all about what we were about to discuss. I nodded and walked into the room. A man sat there, cuffed to a metallic table. He eyed me, curious. I sat down in front of him. "Hail Hydra and all that, Mr. Volgren," I said. He narrowed his eyes, not knowing if he should take me seriously. I wondered for a second if a Russian would understand sarcasm in English. "Who are you?" he asked, a thick accent rolling on his tongue. "What do you want?" I looked at him in silence. This was so weird for me, like I was in Law and Order interrogating a suspect. I took a picture from the folder Miss Hill had given me and placed it in front of him. He took it with haste. He recognized it. Good. That meant this was my guy. He turned the picture upside down as if he were afraid of anyone seeing it. "Where is it?" he asked, with a hint of panic in his voice. His eyes scanned the room. "Safe," I said. "I need to know who knew about it, and if anyone might be looking for it." "Ugh," he frowned, thinking. "You have it?" he said in realization. When I didn't answer, he took it as a confirmation. He tried to reach for me, making me jump a bit on my seat, but the cuffs stopped him.
You need to destroy it,
he said lowly. Now it was me frowning. What did he mean? I looked over my shoulder, waiting for the door to open and some uniforms to escort me back. The deal was that I could stay as long as Mr. Volgren didn't get snappy. But the door remained closed, so I guessed Miss Hill was giving me more time to press him. Why would I destroy it? I asked.
Because he will find you.
Who is he? I insisted.
Etat Ambudak,
he exclaimed. He sounded so distraught. But I had no idea why, and he wasn't giving me clues. English, Volgren, I said, snapping my fingers in front of his face. I don't speak Bratva.
Strucker,
he yelled at me, making me jump. Strucker? What's that? I pressed.
He's not a what,
he said, annoyed.
He's a he.
Okay. I couldn't give him points for his grammar. Anyone else apart from Strucker I should know about? I said, pointing towards the picture. He shook his head sad.
I'm the only one left,
he whimpered.
Strucker killed them all.
Why? I asked.
Because it didn't work.
He banged the table with his fist.
We failed.
The Dietrich, I said, thinking out loud. But it does work? He snapped his head towards me.
It works?
He repeated. He was really surprised.
It works!
He laughed. Volgren! I snapped my fingers in front of his face. Stay with me! Where is Strucker? Anton looked at me, alarmed as if a realization had hit him like a truck. He shook his head and tried to step away from me, but he was still stuck to the table, so he couldn't get too far. He resorted to screaming in Russian. He started to scare me. What the hell was wrong with him? The door opened and the guard scooped me out of the room to restrain him. Miss Hill was waiting for me outside. She had her arms crossed over her chest and looked pissed at something. I threw my hands to the air. It wasn't my fault. The only programmer left that had worked with my drive had completely lost his shit. Who the fuck is Strucker anyways? Wolfgang von Strucker, Miss Hill announced to the room. We had gone back to the tower and managed to intercept all the Avengers. They were sitting around a table waiting for Maria Hill to tell them what we had been up to. I was slouched on one of the chairs, fidgeting with the drive inside my hoodie pocket, thinking. Volgren had really freaked me out. I didn't know why he was so scared of this Strucker. He couldn't get to him. He was safe. There was no need for all the drama. Was it? A Hydra scientist, Miss Hill continued. We haven't been able to find him, but we didn't know if he was still around. She made a pause. He is obviously still around. No shit, I whispered without looking up. Language, Rogers told me. Again. I scoffed and rolled my eyes. He was so annoying. He had gone dark, Agent Romanoff said. What made him come back out? This, I said, holding the USB over the table. The whole room looked at it for some seconds. And that is, Rogers asked. A drive, I said slowly, so the fossil would understand me, and shoved the drive back to my pocket. Kira, Mr. Stark warned me. A program, I sighed, rubbing my face. It helps me hack. Hack? Agent Barton said. Hack what? Anything, I said. Where did you get that from? Agent Romanoff asked. I found it, I said. Found it, Dr. Banner repeated. I could see he wanted to believe me, but he wasn't completely sure about it. Yeah, found it. Meaning you stole it, Rogers said. I narrowed my eyes. I found it. Have you ever used it? Agent Romanoff asked. A couple of times, I shrugged. I thought it didn't leave any trace. But somehow, someone figured out it was still around. Great, Agent Barton said. I asked Jarvis to look into it. I explained. S.H.I.E.L.D. had some files on it. It's Hydra's. That made Rogers flinch a little. Thanks to Jarvis, it was easy to find out who were the people who had programmed it. Miss Hill told me when the FBI found one of them. What about the rest? Agent Barton asked. Dead, Miss Hill said. And the other one? Agent Romanoff asked. I just talked to him, I said. Anton Volgren. He didn't say anything useful. Except a name, Miss Hill intervened. Strucker. Strucker has Loki's scepter, Thor reminded us. Thor's brother, Loki, had come to New York some years back, carrying with him a weird alien scepter. Then his army of aliens tried to invade New York. It was a weird period for all of us. So why does he want this now? Rogers asked, taking me back to the conversation at hand. No idea, I said. But Volgren was pretty worried about it. We have to find him, Agent Barton said, and fast. Agreed, Thor said. Jarvis is already looking for him, Mr. Stark said. All we can do is keep destroying Hydra's last bases, Rogers said. We will flush him out eventually. A phone started to ring. Maria Hill left the room to answer. When were you going to tell us you had that? Rogers said. I narrowed my eyes in confusion. Never, I said as if it were obvious. He shouldn't be so harsh. I was actually using it to help him out with an investigation I knew he had going on behind everyone's back. Though, he didn't know I was actually helping him. Still, he didn't have to be a jerk all the time. He always looked down on me up from his high moral ground. He licked his lips and sifted on the chair. I don't think you He was thankfully interrupted when Miss Hill came back into the room with a grim look on her face. Volgren is dead, Miss Hill said. I frowned. What? I said, confused. We saw him like an hour ago. He was fine. The prison guards just found him dead in his cell, she said. He had swallowed poison. Where did he get poison from? Mr. Stark asked. I saw Rogers dart his eyes towards me, and I jumped defensively. Not for me. We're looking into it, Miss Hill said. I looked down. A couple hours ago he was fine. Then I talked to him. Now he was dead. This couldn't be a coincidence. Someone must have killed him, or maybe he killed himself. But why now? Did he talk to anyone after I left? I asked, not looking up. Part of me wondered if he had died because of me. Had he told me something he shouldn't have? Maybe he wasn't supposed to talk about Strucker, or the D-Trick, the key. Strucker might have reached him, Agent Barton said. Killed him, made it look like a suicide. We don't know yet, Rogers said. But we should assume there's someone looking for that drive, and they're willing to kill to get it. My phone alarm rang loudly, pulling me out of the trance. I turned it off, not realizing that it had also surprised the rest of the room. I have to go home, I said, grabbing my jacket from my chair. Leslie will get nervous if I don't get there in time. Maybe you should stay here while we figure this out, Rogers said. I shook my head, walking to the exit. I'm not going to be afraid of a ghost, I said. Just because Volgren had died didn't mean that something was going to happen to me. Cap is right, Kira, Mr. Stark said. You should stay. That's all right, boss, I said, getting into the elevator. I'll be fine. And the doors closed. I stepped out of the car, thanked the driver, and went into the building. I had shivers even though I wasn't cold, but I had the feeling a shadow was following me. I was creeped out. Maybe it was just because of all the business with Volgren. I still couldn't understand how he was dead. It felt so surreal. I climbed the steps to my floor in a hurry. I needed to get home as soon as possible. I wanted to talk to Leslie about normal things and forget that a man might have died because I have been too curious. I opened the door quickly and closed it behind me. "Leslie, I'm home," I announced. I took my jacket off and hung it from the wall. Leslie didn't answer, so I figured she was with her headphones. I walked into the living room. "Leslie..." I stopped dead on my tracks. "Kira, get out of here," Leslie said, despite the gun on the side of her head, and the man cooing her to shut up. I swallowed. Was she crazy? I couldn't go and leave her there. I didn't say a word. I just stood there. I darted my eyes around the dimly lighted room. There were two guys, one with Leslie, and the other one closer to me. "Are you Kira?" the man said. He had an accent that I wanted to recognize as German, but I wasn't sure. I didn't answer. I looked at Leslie. She was trying to look all calm, but she had been crying. Her eyes were puffy and red, and I could see some tears glistening on her cheeks. "Let her go," I said firmly. The man smirked. He turned slightly and said something to his colleague in German. The other man chuckled too. "Okay," he said. "We'll let her go." Just like that? I thought. "Once you tell us where to find something," he continued. "It's a little card, like a USB. Do you know where it is?" I licked my lips. Shit. I tried not to make weird movements. The fucking drive was still in my wallet. I nodded. The man looked at the gunner again and they both smiled. "Where is it?" he asked. "Tony Stark has it." I lied. He looked very disappointed. He rubbed his face and turned around. They exchanged some words and then nodded. The rest followed too fast. The gunner hit Leslie in the head with the gun. She fell to the floor and I ran to her side to check if she was fine. She was unconscious. They had hit her really bad. I looked to the kidnappers to yell at them, only to find both of them pointing guns towards me. I gulped. Then I heard my door being kicked down and someone coming into the living room. He was wearing a bandana, covering most of his face, and was holding a bat. He came charging against my assailants and started swinging the bat as hard as he could. There were some shots and punches, but the bat guy overpowered them, leaving them lying on the floor with their heads smashed in. I was still holding Leslie. I looked at the two guys ruining my floor with their blood, and then at the bat guy. He was panting. He wiped some sweat from his forehead with the sleeve of his green jumper and took down his bandana. I knew him. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Are you fucking kidding me?" I yelled.